Hello and welcome to the IAM lesson. We're going to go over some ways to use AWS to create and delete user accounts, as well as how to give them permissions in their own AWS user accounts. The reason that you'll want to make AWS user accounts, even if it's just you using AWS, is because it's the best practice to not use the root account unless absolutely necessary. This helps with security and preventing accidental deletions or changes. First, let's show you how to get to the AWS Identity and Access IAM service. After logging into AWS, let's find the service search bar, which will be at the top of the screen. Type in IAM, and it should be the first result. And here we're going to primarily be for the lesson. One of the first things that will pop up is the IAM dashboard, which shows multiple things at the moment, such as the security recommendations, IAM resources, and other things that you can get at a glance, showing you about the users and the groups associated with it quickly. Some of the things like adding MFA to the root user or deactivating old access keys are things that will constantly be recommended if you don't do them. And they typically are best practices that AWS wants you to do and you should do when you are creating user groups and managing user accounts. But first, let's navigate to the user section, which will be on the left under access management. And here's where we can create users. It's going to be the orange button in the top right. Clicking on that, the first thing you're prompted to do is to create a username. The requirements for a username are right underneath it. And we will write temp user 1 as our username. Just for this example, you can name it whatever you'd like, and then we are going to provide user access to the AWS management console. There's two different types of users. You can use a user and identity center or create an IAM user. We're going to create an IAM user just for this example. You can either use an automated generated password or a custom password. I recommend and AWS prompting the user to make a new password on sign in, just so that way it's a password that they remember, especially if you're making this account for someone else. And after you've gotten that situated, if you've made a custom password or you're sticking with the auto-generated one, hit next, and we can see things like the permission options. And permissions are really just JSON files, which are files that tell you whether or not you can do something or access a certain resource in AWS. These JSON files can either be put directly on a user or, in the case that we're doing, in a user group. And user groups are just essentially AWS permissions that you can attach to multiple users and change multiple users' permissions at a quick pace. With whoever's attached with the user group gets the permissions of the user group. So we'll give the user group a name. I put in temp group, and you can use some of the AWS managed policies. AWS has over 900 of them, and you can typically type in a service and pick one that is relevant to what you are. Of course, we're trying to use the least amount of privileges principle, but using AWS managed services for whatever service that you want to use is a good idea. I'm going to use administrator access since I'm assuming that this is for an account to use outside of the root. And just administrator access gives you access to pretty much everything that you'll need to throughout the course. You can give yourself fewer privileges if you'd like, or if you feel more secure, but in order to just access everything, it's easier to just give yourself administrator access, and then for other accounts just use whatever is being used for that service. So you can click whatever policies that you want to use, and then click the create user group at the bottom. And then you have a user group. You can give someone more than one user group or just a single user group. It doesn't really matter, but it does show you how many users and some of the attached policies with it. So after that, you're going to see a review and create. It just shows you kind of what you've done to create the user, what the permission summaries are, if you want them to change the password, and then also including tags. Tags are a way to identify and organize resources in AWS, which isn't something that we're going to be going over right now, but it is important to be mindful of just in the future in case you want to organize things a bit better. And then here is the place where you send out the information for a user. So you get the username, the console sign-in URL, as well as the console password. You can download it as a CSV or email it. Email the instructions. The AWS will prompt you to copy the password or send it or email it or something, just because this is the only time that you'll be able to see the password. If you don't take it now, it's kind of just locked away, which is, a security measure to prevent someone just looking through other people's passwords. And of course, this is how to delete it. Just click the user and hit the delete button. And it'll prompt you to type in the username so that way you are deleting the right thing. And then that user is gone. So that's how you both create and delete a user account. The same thing pretty much goes for user groups, where you can just click it and then hit delete, and the user group is finished. So that's pretty much it for the IAM creating and deleting user account section. Make sure that you delete any ones that you aren't going to use or that aren't working properly, and see you next time.